So welcome to the Chaos of Value work group meeting. Today's June 4th. I think on the agenda for me today is I'd like to get through what the focus areas are going to be for the next release. And I think just kind of coming to consensus on that. So not necessarily the release of any new metrics, but thinking about what those focus areas are and then what the questions are associated with those focus areas. And then given time after that, kind of going through any outstanding issues, GitHub issues right now, just kind of doing a relook at some of those. So Sean, you've become Kate.
I know. Guess who just was using my computer? Birthday call. That would be my wife.
All right. So I went ahead and I kind of took a run at this in the spreadsheet. And if you take a look, if you go click on Copy of Value tab down at the bottom, some of you may or may not have seen this as I posted it in response to one of the issues.
Mm-hmm.
So I added so we had talked about different focus areas: social value, organizational value, individual value, and I added community value as well. And then I had a couple lingering metrics that were in there, kind of in that. If you look at the value tab at the bottom, you can see what things used to look like, and copy of value is the updated one.
All right, that's where I was confused. I was looking just at the value one, and I'm like, I'm not seeing what you're seeing, but okay.
Yeah, so value is the old one, and copy of value is the new one.
Okay. And we're not deprecating any current metrics, right?
Correct. So I tried to put everything that was on the prior
into a category.
Yep. Except for those two at the bottom rows, 44 and 45. I just didn't know.
This is the third working group I've been in that's working on forks.
Yeah, and I'm like punting it.
Where did this fork came from?
So if you click on the value tab,
in the living wage.
This is everything. Yeah.
Forks is smelling like it should be in common, which is like one of the few places it's not.
So maybe the first thing to take a look at is the green, the released metrics. That's kind of first and foremost. Are those released metrics, are those the appropriate places, or does that kind of categorize the released metrics?
I just have on the labor issues, investment can be from the individual also, or the releases from the organizational perspective?
Labor investment's a cost to the organization, I think.
That's how I read it.
Project velocity is an interesting one because
the link is not working in the labor investment.
Well, broken links is what we're all about here at the CHAOSS project.
I think I pasted no, that's not it. Yeah, there you go. It works now. It's a labor investment.
So
project velocity is probably community value.
What I'm wondering about is, have we written out the goal for each focus area yet?
We have started on that. It's in the minutes.
Oh, okay, I see.
Yep. So the only one that we haven't started on is community value. Again, because I just added that today. So I'll share my screen here.
Can you explain what the community value is?
Sure. So my thought was that we have individual value. That's the human, right? Just that person, that singular person. Organizational value to me is the company. So that takes care of those two right there. Social value to me is having an impact in the world beyond just a company, but actually having some sort of social justice component, social value component, something that's larger than the project itself. And community value is trying to determine value specifically on that open source community. So for example, project velocity is often, if you take a look at that metric, it's often about kind of how that open source project stands relative to other open source projects.
And
Matt, yeah.
I'm having some aha moments of like, okay, so these are different categories, kind of different buckets of saying like, hey, so and so, like, see, this is valuable, and like, I'm assuming in each case, like what you perceive as valuable. Are you after social value when you say value? Are you after organizational value, or after community value, or individual value?
Yep.
That hits home for me. Yeah, I've got some specific questions, but I guess just starting there, like that hits home, like that. Those are the many faces of value. If we, probably not all of them to the point you've made before, but like it is a pretty good place to start.
Yep, moves us off zero. That's the phrase.
Yeah.
I have one question. So,
Sure.
how community value is different from a social value? I feel like both are somehow interrelated very much.
No, they're they're all interrelated. So I mean, we have the CHAOSS project. That's the CHAOSS community, and we ourselves are not necessarily a reflection on changing the world for a better place.
Right. But we might be.
We could be. So I mean, so if we were going to do social justice work, that would be measuring our impact on improving social justice for folks. So if we wanted to use CHAOSS metrics as a way to demonstrate that there's an improvement in contributions from people from, say, the global south, say that was what the CHAOSS project wanted to do, that would be something that we would want to look at and understand from a social impact or a social value perspective. It's not necessarily about the CHAOSS community itself, but it's about how we can make the world a better place.
Right.
Yeah, and are you saying that the metrics that we want to release per category here, or per focus area, they should be basically convincing somebody who's seeing them that we're either doing well in that category or doing not well?
Yeah, so the idea would be as if you as a person are coming at coming to the CHAOSS project, and you're like, I would like to get a better understanding of organizational value, right? So what's the value that's associated organizationally? Here are some of the metrics that can help provide insight on organizational value. Did that answer your question? And if you're interested in social value, here are some of the metrics that can give you better insight with respect to social value impact.
Yeah. I got you. That hits home.
So like if let's see how, I guess maybe these are good questions. So if I was an external observer and I was going to look at an open source project, right? Open source project A, whatever that project might be. And I want to determine the social value that project has. That would be a question I would ask, right? That's a fair question. Is this project having an impact on society at large? That could be a question.
Yeah, I was So in column B, I was trying to
I
capture
see.
the conversation.
Yep.
And I had impact here. I now wrote outcome. Outcome in impact, very similar words in my mind, but if we take a look at column B, if we can agree on those, I think that would make sense.
I think these column B help me to distinguish between social value and community value.
So I'm getting a little bit of just confusion in my own head. So, and part of it's the directionality of column A. And what I mean by that is the project has impact on society, right? That's the project kind of going that way. Organizational value is slightly different, right? It's understanding what an organization can derive or
Yes.
how can derive from the project. So it's, you see the directionality is a little bit different there.
Yeah.
One is I'm standing inside of the organization saying what's the value that I can derive from this project.
Mm-hmm.
Society, I'm kind of standing in the community almost saying what's the impact that this community has on society. Maybe I'm overthinking it,
But I feel like I could flip that lens, or let me at least try and see if it sounds sane. Of like, if I'm looking externally and I see that my community is having an impact on society by
Mhm.
using SCMS, like I am perceiving a personal value from that, and using that as like a gauge of whether I want to use this software or ignore it and use one that has a higher impact when it comes to social value.
Mhm.
So I guess it's still like a decision making tool.
Okay.
And like I guess that's like the thing I'm measuring in my head. Like, would I make a decision based on this metric, and would that decision be based on my societal understanding of it, my organizational understanding, etc.?
Okay. Yep.
I mean, so it's,
Yes,
yeah,
that makes sense.
that makes, yeah. And so I look at social value as different from community value. It, it's outside the project. So community value is inside the project, and social value is, it affects a larger collection of humans in some way.
And in terms of directionality, I see organization, individual, and community both are internal direction, and only the social value is external direction.
Okay. And we can live with this. That's not a
Yeah,
Yeah.
not a
like
big deal.
Yeah.
because every user group or a stakeholder has a different perspective of the value, and whether they want to perceive it internally or they want to share it externally
Oh,
can be a value.
well said.
Cool. I see Georg's making some comments on possibly moving some of the metrics. That's what your comments are, right, Georg?
In column C, yes.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't want to layer too much on top there, but I was thinking about the same thing. But with like share of voice, my intention there was like I think of it as an organizational value, like because you're showing that your org is winning, quote unquote, in this. It's very militaristic kind of framing.
Yep.
Organizations do it of like we're winning in the race for share of voice.
Well, let's just move it. I mean, we've got a lot of latitude right now, so.
Yeah. And then the same sort of thing for, I don't know how to do this. So the boss index data, that's something that a VC uses in order to basically like flat out decide if they want to, pay people to work on an open source project because they think it's monetizable.
Mhm.
That's
an organizational thing.
Yeah, it's an indicational of like investment opportunity.
Okay.
And like if you think investment opportunity makes sense in org, that makes sense to me.
Right on.
Cool.
Yeah, I'm not wedded to any of these things. Just trying to.
Totally. I'm just in the think out loud stage. So
Yep.
that's making sense to people. And this really hits home of like earning potential, like is such a great I know, Vinod, I think you brought this up a couple times. It just makes total sense. Like in the context of individual value, that's like such an amazing metric to have off the top of your head. You're like, what's my earning potential if I pick up this job on a certain framework versus this other one?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, people think like that.
Yeah,
Sure.
Sure.
we're all
Totally.
we're all somewhat playing the game.
Well, I guess that would, the way you just described it, 33 is related to 31, right? Row
Yes.
33.
Yeah,
Yeah.
organizational project skill demand. I mean, skill demand and earning potential. Like earning potential sounds like the metric would be like a salary range. Project skill demand, I don't know what is that, like a scale from 1 to 100. I think it really depends on like what the actual metric is.
Mm-hmm. Cool.
Is there, can I add a column for like metric type? I don't know if I'm completely bastardizing this.
Let's try it, prototype it, see what happens.
Okay.
So while you're doing that, can I talk about the other suggestions of movement
Yeah.
that I have? So in social value, if the question is impact on internet society or just society at large, then I think the social currency metric system does not belong in there,
Mm-hmm.
because that is look at the community and do social listening on what is going inside the community and
Gotcha.
understanding where their mood is, where their mind is. And so that is,
community metric.
Yeah.
it's either a
I
community
didn't-
metric, but that depends on how we define the community value, which is still not clear to me.
That's a very complex metric, but I understood it to be similar to engagement, which to me speaks outside of a community. Like beyond that seems like a larger boundary than community to me, but I didn't write it. It just seemed like a very comprehensive metric.
I mean, I think like the metric itself, like the is the, you know, percentage of conversation around topics of interest.
Yeah, the link on that one's broken too.
We'll have to all use our Google Foo today.
Yeah, there we go.
But yeah, so I'm pretty sure the final metric has to do with the value. I mean, sorry, the conversation around topics, which for me, like organizationally, we can definitely rule that one out. Organizations don't totally care about what people are talking about. Like you have to decide what value is before you get to anywhere there. Social impact's kind of hard to push because, like, what's the social impact of people talking on its own? So I start to get towards like, yeah, like is the community, kind of goes into community health in my head. Are they talking about healthy things? So it's kind of, that's the category in my head.
Okay.
Wow. Yeah, this is even bigger than the last time I saw it. God. I mean, the discussions I remember around it were related to metaphorically to brand value and things like that. And I think
Yeah.
It's bigger than any of the other categories than social value means, but like I don't think it fits. I think it's too big to fit anywhere else but social value, just because I think organizations look at their engagement with a project in a similar way, and individuals look at their engagement and social metrics in a similar way. So I just think it's in a bigger bucket than community when I look at what it is. But I'm not going to argue strongly. Like it's just a category.
Sure.
But it's a giant freaking metric.
I think we're all in agreement that we could, chew pieces of this off and make it clear. Maybe it can sit in community to start.
Yeah, I do think listening to the prior conversations on it, as Georg had described it, it is about trying to understand dynamics within the community, complex or not. That's kind of the goal of what it's trying to do.
It's a listening tool, social listening tool, and then to get metrics out of what the community is talking about, how they're interacting, what their opinions are. So I don't see that having any impact on the social value, on the society. It can have impact on organizations, it can have impact on individuals, but I think community is the most fitting.
Where?
And then the other one is project popularity.
Yep.
I don't know what to do about that.
I consider that an organizational value, because like organizations invest based on how popular something is. Whether I think that's the same usage or not, that's an observation.
I think this is one of those metrics that it's fine in organizational value or community value. It probably depends on where you're standing.
Yeah.
So like if I'm in the CHAOSS project, I care how popular our project is. I do.
They have like under organizational value, I see a lot of in-progress metrics that already exist in other working groups that might be filters.
Yeah, that's exactly what I wanted to ask about, the commit count by organization.
Issue count, pull request, all that is, those three are already in evolution, and I don't know if organization is but basically I think you just specify an aggregation by organization inside the existing metrics for those. Kokomo is the code complexity metric that's in development and risk as well.
Okay. But I think, to your point,
I'm just pointing out, like, since I'm in so many working groups, which ones are actively working on the same thing.
Yep.
Yeah, I think of organizational value as it will depend on raw data from elsewhere, but then it has to synthesize into something that is perceived as valuable on its own. Has been my hope for it. And issue count, commit count, stuff like that just is not. It definitely feeds into a narrative, but like it holds no narrative on its own.
I think they are listed here because they were part of another, like, labor investment or there was another metric.
Matt put a comment in there that they're part of labor investment.
I didn't put it in there. Somebody else did, but.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and so I think labor investment was the one that draws on other metrics, and so the reason they're in here is because they need to be defined, but they don't have to be defined in the value working group.
Yeah, I think, labor investment is.
So I'm perfectly fine with removing these.
Yeah, like in labor investment, we can only estimate from the view that we have of any given repository.
Yeah, and to your point earlier, Sean, too, like pull request count by organization. The organizational diversity is something that's being handled in common, and pull request count is being handled in evolution, and collectively.
Yeah.
This has been solved somewhere else. So.
Yeah. But it's important, I guess. Yeah, it's that's finally I was just looking at them that way, and
so
every time I see this, I think there needs to be a matrix across working groups.
Yeah.
What do you say? Why don't we just
with you? Once we kind of clean up like what we have in progress on value, I think it would be important to document like the matrices of what value depends on elsewhere.
Yeah, I wouldn't delete these right now. I think leaving them crossed out is helpful, but I think it might be useful to remember that we have to go back and build that matrix later. Like this, I know it looks weird, but the crossed out ones, or unless we can keep them somewhere else too, but.
Okay.
I want to make sure we remember to do that.
I'll open an issue in value group right now for that.
So in just FYI, with respect to project popularity, the way it's written is actually for the individual.
Huh. That's hilarious.
that you would try to identify popular projects, you as a human, and you would
Sure.
participate in those projects because
because
they're
you're
popular.
gaining your career. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
It's raising your profile.
So
You're
Okay.
following the herd.
I mean, I think that actually is very aligned to the history of value groups. Like almost everything fell into this like individualistic idea of like, how do I monetize my skills?
yep.
And like when I joined, it's because I was really interested in the organizational value, and but then I lost the context before it. So now we're kind of, building the kaleidoscope out.
So who put keep it in social? I'm guessing you, because you're about ready to say something.
The proposal here is to keep it in social value because it's having impact on more than just the individual. It's having impact on organizations. It's the community is thriving because it's popular, and it has that bandwagon effect, where just because it is popular, it starts to draw in people, and at the same time, people start to copy what has made it so popular. So it's having a larger impact on others.
Do you think
By that.
there would be some room for reframing the way the metric's written to make sure it meets that goal?
Yes.
Okay. So I think we're finding, or I'm finding right now, is that it really depends how the metric's written, where it is. Because like, to your point, the voice could be any one of these for most of them. And I don't think that's a bug. I think it might be a feature. Like we'll map it out to an individual goal, and people might use it in other categories by tweaking it. That's my impression so far.
So are there, I guess, a question for you, Georg? Like, to me, social value, the way that we've been talking about it, at least today, is this open source project is improving the lives of people.
Yeah.
And not just to make money, but to improve access for people, to help raise the voices of underrepresented groups that otherwise couldn't be raised. Things like that. That's what when I'm thinking social value.
I would suggest that V index perfectly fits in the social value.
What's that?
V index perfectly fits to the social value because it's measuring the impact on the downward dependencies of the project.
No, I don't. V index wouldn't fit there for me. It's about like if I mention the global South again. So like contributions to participating in tech related work is not equally distributed across the globe. And so different places in the globe have different access to technology. They have different access to the way that work gets done. And so is our project being attentive to enable that type of access? Is our project one such project that helps improve voices from underrepresented groups? It's not just about the connection of software. It's about trying to raise people who may not have the ability to speak up, but this project helps. This is something that does that.
Mm-hmm.
That's what social value is to me. So like with the current state of affairs going on, right? Particularly with the protests, are there open source projects out there right now that are helping improve the state of affairs?
Totally. Yeah. So it's like, is this making people safer?
Yes.
That kind of a sub question.
Yes.
Yeah.
I love that. So
there's not much software that's doing that. There's activity on software platforms that are having an effect.
I would disagree. Like I've retweeted project that is helping remove metadata from images and whiting out faces of protesters to protect their identity. And like, and my friend who's organizing the North Minneapolis.
Oh, that's right. You're in Minneapolis. I forgot that. Yeah, you're right there.
Oh yeah, I'm very in it right now, emotionally and not too much physically. I'm in an adorable suburb. It's but it's like half a mile away from buildings that were on fire on Friday.
Yeah.
So anyway, yeah, that aside, like I'm happy to talk more about that, but I'd say like there is something about safety of participation, about something that makes something visibly either more equitable or not. Don't know that angle very well, but safety was the first thing in mind.
I think some of the projects that the Software Freedom Conservancy supports,
yes, yes,
that they really do look at social impact. So
that's a really good example, actually.
Yeah.
So we may not have any at the moment, as it's empty.
That's fine. I think just to be able to clearly identify it as a group, we'll end up finding them.
Yep.
I was offering some reframing as questions by area. If that's helpful, I can copy and paste that elsewhere and back out of the edits if that's.
No, this is fine.
Okay. Whoever put justice, equity, equality, access, that's brilliant.
I get that.
Then I have one question on this. How it is then different from diversity and inclusion?
The difference here is that diversity and inclusion looks for access, justice, equality, equity of people participating inside our community.
Okay.
So D&I is about bringing in these people and helping them to participate in the project. Social value is about creating that impact outside of the people who are participating in the project.
Software is a social good, larger than the project, larger than the organization, larger than the individual. It's generalized social good and justice, access. Those are really good words.
Yeah.
Okay, I propose to leave social value since we don't have anything here. I think we can make more headway in the other areas.
Yep. So then that leaves 3 at the moment: org value, individual value, and community value. So I guess
3 with metrics, but the 4th category still exists. We just haven't put metrics in yet.
Correct. Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Correct.
Share voice, boss index thing. We have released the organizational project demand skills.
Yep.
Is that?
It's probably easier to look like actually on the release. Move that out of the way. There.
I broke this all with my archiving. How many new
organs?
So, oh no. Yeah. All right, take it away, Matt. I'm going to stop rambling.
Well, did you want to know what organizational project skill demand was? Sort of seemed like you were.
Was that a category previously?
No, it's always been a metric. I just put it under individual value.
Okay.
But it looks like it's actually the way it's written.
How many organizations are using this project and could hire me if I be?
Oh no, it's very, very individual.
Very individual.
Yeah.
I mean, this honestly looks great. All in favor, just leaving it?
Yep.
Cool, move on.
And job opportunities. I mean, it's the
That.
same sort of thing.
I don't think we have to discuss that.
Yeah, perfect.
And then SCMS and project velocity or community, like ways to think about your own community.
So
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, so then if we're kind of okay with at least the greens for now, sitting in these focus areas.
yep.
So then let's see, June 4, am I in the right? Okay, yep. So with respect to focus area for community value,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
is the goal understanding, is this the goal for community value?
Mm.
Is the goal of a community to be consumed by other communities as a means of sustaining itself, or is the goal of a community simply to sustain itself? Or
Great.
both?
Great
Right?
question.
Because in my mind, when we were talking about it on the spreadsheet, I was thinking the goal of a community was self-sustaining. But I think this goal speaks to how communities self-sustain. Right? If your project stands alone and doesn't integrate at all with other projects, or doesn't help people working on other projects, I mean, actually, it might be an okay standalone piece of software. So,
Yeah.
so there's a consumption dimension of community value as well. Essentially, are there, I don't know.
So project velocity and SCMS, caveats aside, in project popularity that we're going to put in community value, those all really stand to ask the question of like, is this community valuable to me as a user or contributor? Less so. It's not about the interconnection of one community with the other. It's really about the value derived or perceived by the people in the community.
Yes.
Yeah, and that can include these outward-looking components that are in the original goal. I think
Absolutely.
they don't exclude them. I think
I also agree that this interconnection is throwing me off.
Yeah.
And I like what we had in the spreadsheet. I posted here underneath as goal alternative. I like that better. As is this project valuable to its community of users or contributors? And in users, I include downstream projects.
Yeah.
And other open source projects.
Yeah.
Right, so let's just reframe that as not a question.
Project value to its community of users. Yeah.
Yeah, community of users and contributors.
Yeah, that's.
Yeah, I'm with you, Georg, that like there's it may not immediately be obvious that downstream or even upstream consumption is the overall community. So it's a helpful point. I don't know how to connect it. Cool.
Oh, wait, we don't have descriptions for focus areas.
We have goals.
Yeah.
Okay, then let's get it into the goal.
But you can just go ahead and make the changes. You don't have to suggest them.
Okay.
We're all brainstorming here.
All good. Okay.
All right, I reframed social value just to start. Understanding social value, I guess one of the questions is, would we release social value as a focus area for the next release, even though it has no metrics? No,
We have
empty.
not done that in the past.
Okay, so then so we can skip that for now. Organizational
Yeah.
understanding the economic incentive, the value derived from investment, the value of.
Organizational value is one that, I guess I'm struggling with the two questions. And that we're trying to sort of really shove these, are we trying to shove the focus areas under these two questions? Because organizational value kind of addresses both of them. Not
So
kind of like actually does.
The focus area is the highest level thing, and that
Okay.
contains the goal.
Right.
And then we have a series of questions that can be associated with that goal.
Okay. So okay.
So we're
I
so
get
we're not,
that, but why are the questions there right now?
can you highlight which questions you're talking about?
What gets people to invest in their community? And then we have focus area, community value, and reputation was there a second ago, but now it's gone. So maybe it was edited out of existence.
It may.
Okay. All right.
I'm
No, I was just sort of wondering if those questions were remaining or not, and now they're gone. So I don't have any questions.
Okay.
I mean, somebody deleted them.
So what about this goal for organizational value that I have on the screen?
Can you just remind me one more time? So it's focus area, goal, questions.
Yes.
Okay, then I will clean up. So we copied and pasted from the last meeting, and I'm with you, Sean, that it was unclear. So let's just continue to delete the stuff that's no longer relevant, and I'll try to organize it.
And the relationship is that each focus area has one goal and multiple questions, which each are one metric.
Gotcha.
At least that's how we've done it so far.
Let's not deviate. It makes it too hard.
Yeah, we need some structure. Okay. So you were asking focus area for organizational value. Is this the one?
Yeah. Is this the goal? Is that a well-defined? Is that the goal of?
Yeah, I was still using the phrase like monetarily valuable. Investing in the community is, yeah, I guess maybe I need to think beyond monetization. I just think that's a good pass through for organizational value.
Yeah, one of the things I've heard doing a lot of interviews, that another value component is skill development. So for employee skill development, so having them work on projects, build skills.
Oh, sure. Yeah, I've had a lot of projects talk about that and then stop doing them because it wasn't making money.
I agree. I mean, I was even going to say things like strategic influence, but that just rolls up to money, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah, exactly. I'm like kind of cut the middleman and let's talk about what everyone's not talking about. But
yes, everything does just float that way. So I get it.
I do respect it though, because a lot of stuff like employee retention, like many organizations are adopting open source strategies in order to allow their employees to use and write open source as part of their work, because it's has such an impact on employee retention according to exit interviews.
I had heard a interview comment once that said, we have our employees participate in open source to strike a balance between boredom and fear. So So they're not totally bored at our company, but they're not absolutely terrified by working in open source. So we're trying to.
Yeah.
Holy, that's like the most honest explanation
Yes.
of open source that I've
I
ever
thought it was great.
It's a great way to like probably keep COBOL programmers. You know.
Cool.
So is this goal okay? We have just a few seconds here.
I propose an alternative definition. I'm finding understanding the value of investing in community and associated functions. I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know if
Understanding.
the dimension. I mean, I guess what I'm suggesting is that that's really the goal of the focus area is understanding the
Yeah, it
dimensions.
is. Yep.
And I don't know. Oddly, I don't know if it's easier for other people to follow or if it's just easier for me to follow because I wrote it.
So I would strike out the investment to functions in an organization, because the way I see chaos metrics is they're looking at community health of open source projects, and looking at the health of my organizational function, let's say an OSPO, to me is outside of what the chaos metrics should be. And so I think, sure, the OSPO can have value by building out engagements with a community, but that's different.
I didn't follow that.
My head exploded,
Oh, okay.
which is my way of saying the same thing.
Okay. To me, chaos metrics are metrics about communities.
Okay.
And in here, we have a phrase that says, and its associated functions within an organization considering a particular project.
So that's
And that to me is a metric about the organization, not about the community.
Oh, okay. So I feel that I think I wrote that originally, which is not straightforward, but I think the implication is that like value is derived differently based on organizational unit. So the exact same goal for a marketing organization to, have an impact through open source and a engineering organization have an impact through the open source. They're not going to measure the same thing as success, and misappropriating their definition of value is a recipe for defunding. Speaking from experience. So like there's an element here of understanding who you're talking to in a organization and what they define as valuable. And it still is about communities, right? Because many investments in open source communities are funded by organizations.
Okay, I like that
the
context part. I really like that context part. And so I rewrote it a little bit so it makes sense in my head. Let's see if it makes sense to you, saying, understanding the value of investing in a community from the perspective of an organizational function that is considering contributing or consuming a particular open source project. So it becomes the context from within we
Yeah.
value.
I like that. And as much as I love the brevity of your definition, Sean, I think like the language around like capital or labor, like it's very
specific.
It's what?
It's specific.
Yeah. Well, yeah, exactly. I think it's definitely, the specificity is nice, but I think it's hard to understand what those words mean without a lot of
Money and people's time. But I'm cool with the whatever definition y'all want to put on it.
Cool. Yeah, I struggle with like capital in a corporate. Like I'm trying to think about our users. Like
I hate the word resources because it dehumanizes people.
No, yeah, so hold on. Before we go modifying the second one, we have 2 goals right now. So it sounds like let's just maybe roll that forward for the time being. We're already over time. So could I just ask you to take a real quick look at this individual value one?
It's pretty straightforward to understand what's in it for me.
Yeah.
WITFM. It's the radio station we all tune into.
That's it. What's in it for me?
Yeah, there's something like, or in my career, like there's kind of like a career readiness element of this that I don't know if that snags, but for me as a contributor or user,
Yep.
that'd be fine as long as we hit both of those personas.
Right.
How about that?
Provides me to my career. It's not even as a contributor, like, because like it's basically saying like one of these metrics is, can I make money if I learn Kubernetes?
That's really what these metrics are at this point. Like,
yeah.
I just want to get a better job. Okay.
All right. That sounds good.
Okay, so I will I know we're over, but I'll take these and I'll issue a PR kind of recategorizing things based on these goals and the spreadsheet here. Yeah, kind of how things are reorganized.
That makes sense.
Okay, I'll do that.
Thank you.
We're over time. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks all.
We're out of time. REM.
Well, yeah. Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.